Hey, welcome everybody. Travysty here, and today, as you guys can probably already tell, we have the League of Legends Championship Series North America logo on here. Now, why do we have this logo here? Because, well, I am going to be doing a VOD review for a game per week, actually. If you guys enjoy it, I want to bring not LCS, League of Legends content to my channel. So I figure what better way than to do that than by doing something that I spend every weekend uh, doing already. And, well, honestly, every Thursday night and Friday night catching up on all the VODs. And talk about LCS. So I'm going to pick one match I find really interesting, and I'm just going to roll with it. And, yeah, I'm going to give you guys my perspective on said match. So this week we're going to be looking at the Renegades versus Immortals match. I believe this was week 6, day 1. So if you guys are interested in watching this VOD for yourselves and watching the whole thing, like I said, I'm just going to go over what I feel like are key points. I will be going over picks and bans as well, and just basically doing some of my analyst mumbo jumbo crap. This is my first time doing this, so this ought to be interesting. But with that being said, I'm just going to go through key points. If you guys are interested, be sure to look up LOL Esports on YouTube and look at their VODs. It's in the playlist for NA LCS Spring VODs. So be sure to check that out, definitely. If you want to see the whole game, all the content creators and stuff like that probably can give you a whole different insight. And not content creators, but all the shotcasters. And if you guys are interested, be sure to check out League of Legends. It's a super fun game. I spend probably more time playing League of Legends than any other game out there. So it's definitely a very fun game. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch it off from this image right here. This lovely, lovely image. And we're going to actually go ahead and get into the game here. As you guys can see, I'm actually playing on LCS. I do have the content muted because I would not feel right putting the shoutcasters and all that other stuff. And like I said, I'm only going to go over key points inside of this match that I found were key points. Like I said, this is NA LCS. This is actually Team Renegades, the 1-11 team, I believe. No, they're 1-9 at this point. They're 1-9. Spoiler alert. Versus the 10-0 Immortals. Why did I choose this game? Well, this game right here shows something that I actually am a huge fan of. It's a glimmer of something. Now, to give you guys some backstory on why I chose it, Renegades was a team that when they first qualified for LCS, I was very hyped about. RF Legendary I saw as a potentially really good, well, not potentially, a top laner with a lot of potential. I remember when he was just, duo to homecoming video. If you guys haven't seen it, it's hilarious. Definitely check it out. And a one-trick pony Nidalee player, honestly. He was known for Nidalee, and that's all I remembered about him. And then he grew into becoming a much more diverse player with a bigger pool. And he's grown a lot ever since he started playing competitively with Misfits, which are now Renegades. So I definitely see him as a player with potential. Crumbs, veteran, and Alex Hitch, a veteran, a legendary veteran, actually. Crumbs is kind of in that legend status, I guess. He played on Dignitas in probably the golden years of Dignitas when Scarra was the mid laner. And they had Cutie Pie, Kiwi Kid, and Cruiser the Bruiser. He's been lackluster in LCS ever since it started, but he is a veteran. So it was a team that I was definitely saying, okay, you got a veteran that likes to put out awards. You got a veteran, Alex Itch, who really has shown in the past that he was mechanically really good, and he showed in Challenger scene he was mechanically good. You've got Freeze, who was in my opinion, probably one of the best AD carries out there. Sadly, he suffers from the freeze curse, but he's definitely mechanically skilled. Any team that he's ever been on, he just stands out. It's insane how good his mechanics are. And then we had Remy, who she's no longer a part of Team Renegades, which is why you see Hakuho. But Remy was somebody else I was excited for because she was legitimately the Thresh Queen, and her Morgana was really good. If my Thresh was anywhere a little tiny bit as good as her Thresh is, I would be so happy with myself because, you know what, I'd probably be able to make it into Diamond or Challenger with that kind of a skill. Thresh is Her Thresh is just that good, guys. I'm just saying. But now we have Hakuho, which he was probably the best support free agent that they would be able to pick up out of NA LCS. There's not really a huge pool. No offense to any supports that are in there grinding it out in support, but when you look at the pool of supports, I think the best one that they could have gotten was probably at Special, but he's signed with Apex now, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I mean, you got it Special, who's already signed to a challenger team, so you'd have to fork over some cash to get him. I don't believe Hakuho was playing on a team in the challenger season. I'm not 100% sure. But then we got Huni, who he was probably the biggest import since Bjergsen was imported to NA, so he's the biggest European import. Sadly, you've got Rainover, who's kind of overshadowed by it, but Huni is enabled by Rainover, so I think that's a huge thing that people were excited about. Pobelter, I always thought of Pobelter as the best NA-born mid laner, and he's just been showing up. He's very consistent in this split. Wild Turtle, who is on the path of redemption, I've always felt like he's really good, but I feel like he kind of stopped playing his playstyle towards his last bit with TSM. And then we have Adrian, a guy who I felt like was always a really good, consistent support, and I was super confused when Team Impulse initially subbed him out for Gate. I just was really surprised by that because Adrian, I think, is really good, and he serves as a good enabler. He's really good at making a team play to their strengths while covering their weak points. And I think Adrian just works really well in Immortal since there's legitimately 3 hyper-aggressive players that he can just play defensive for, and it covers a lot of their weaknesses. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and let this play out a little bit so it shows their picks and bans. So with that being said, their bans were, of course, Renegades being on the blue side. They got the first ban and the first pick. Renegade banned out Fiora, Nidalee, and Gangplank, while Immortals banned out Kalista, Cog, and Lulu. Now, important thing to look at here, first of all, is the Fiora and Gangplank are completely targeted towards, well, I won't say completely. Fiora's ban is towards Huni. Gangplank, I feel like, is a ban at both Huni and Pobelter because it's really good, and I think both of them can actually play it really well if they want to. And Nidalee is a ban straight towards the Rainover, because his Nidalee has been shown time and time again as something that is very, very strong and really good, and he's very precise and good at executing as Nidalee. So I think that's really good because I don't think Crumbs is a Nidalee player, so I feel like taking that away like that is probably the best thing that they could do. Immortals bans, Kalista, Cog, and Lulu, those are actually really big. Those, I would actually consider all 3 of those ADC bans. Banning out Freeze. Kalista, Freeze has shown his Kalista is tremendously good. And honestly, if they're not going to put Turtle on it, they might as well just ban it away from him. Because at this moment in time, Freeze is the star player right now. Freeze has been the person that's been showing up game and game. He's just one of those really good players. That just goes back to what I was saying, where Freeze is just super good at the game. With that being said, Kog'Maw, super good at the moment, and I don't feel like they would give that over something that's that game-changing over to Freeze. And then Lulu, that takes it away from from Alex Ich. The reason why that's a big deal, and I consider it an ADC ban, is because it's another champion that is played supportively that can enable Freeze to do a lot of crazy things. So by making sure that they got rid of that, I think was another way of them trying to unable Caitlyn from being able to do as much as she would like. So we'll go over the picks and bans. So first pick, of course, goes over to Renegades. They pick up Gragas first. I think that's actually probably the best thing that they could have done as a first pick, just looking at their champion pools as of late. Picking Freeze a little bit later is a pretty good thing, just because he's probably one of the bigger players. And I feel like picking the top and mid matchup later are really good. Gragas has a lot of good matchups, and he's just right now he's currently really good. And Crumbs is known to be able to play Gragas, so I think that just fits really well. So first pick Gragas, definitely a good first pick. Immortals pick Lucian, Rumble, Nets as their 2 first picks after the Gragas first pick. And this is obviously going to be a Rumble in the jungle from the time they lock it in. I'm not a big fan of Rumble in the jungle just because I feel like, especially on Rainover, because Rainover's such a playmaker on the team, it feels like. It's just rough. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not. I mean, his ulti's good, yes, and he has really good clear speeds. He probably has one of the fastest clears in the game. But it's one of those situations where they pick it super early. It tells a lot, and I'm just not a fan of Rumble in the jungle. Like, I understand why it's good. It's just I'm not a fan of it. That's just my own personal opinion. I feel like he's really good, but picking him early in a draft is really hard in my opinion, because you're basically telling people, hey, I got a squishy Rumble that's going to, well, he's not squishy, but we got a jungler who's just going to clear really fastly, get to level 6 really fastly, and we're going to try and team fight. So that's honestly my opinion on the champion, but he's not bad, obviously, because he's getting picked in LCS and pros know what they're doing. It's just me personally, I'm not a fan of it. Lucian on Wild Turtle, he's shown up on it time and time again, and yeah, it's legitimately like it's a champion that has almost 0 bad matchups, honestly, and picking it early, make sure that Freeze isn't able to pick it. So, and Wild Turtle, I think he's played almost nothing but Lucian, if not nothing but Lucian this whole entire time. So putting him on that champion where he's given results is always huge. Nets would go over to the Nets. The second picks for Renegades, they pick up Caitlyn and Braum, second pick. So they just pick up their bot lane after seeing the Lucian revealed, which isn't a bad thing. I believe Hakio, it's been playing like Hakuyo. How do you say his name? Has been playing nothing but Braum, which I kind of see as a little bit of a weak point going into this, but Braum Caitlyn is not bad because it's actually pretty easy to get that stun off because Caitlyn has the ability to just auto you through minion waves because of the fact of how good her range is. So the harassment is definitely there. If Braum passive was to be put onto somebody, it definitely Caitlyn is enabled to be able to proc that passive from a safe distance. So it's definitely a pretty good bot lane duo right there. They have the synergy automatically, but from champion picks. Nets would be the second picks from Immortals. They decide to pick Lutz Soraka right after that, and I'm actually fine with them doing this because this allows them to enable Huni to have the counter pick. So it'd be very interesting to actually see what they would go for in this certain case, because right now the Rumble can still go top. It's pretty obvious that it's Rumble in the jungle just because that's where people are predominantly picking him, but Huni is a well-known Rumble player back when he was in EU LCS, so I definitely could see them still pulling it. So they're holding on to the flats to the very end. Lutz, Polbelter's just been super consistent on it. It doesn't have a lot of bad matchups, just because of the fact that it is safe. It is exploitable because of the fact that she isn't able to move. So ganks and stuff like that are something that he always has to keep his eye on. But with Rainover supporting him from the jungle, with the fact of how many wards that he actually ends up putting out on the map, I feel like that's not a big deal. And then they also pick up Soraka, which Adrian's just been putting up results on. And honestly, it enables this super aggressive team that they've been building to be fully enabled and allow Adrian to just cover up any mistakes or mispositionings they make by being able to just heal them over and over again. Also, that cross-map ulti, it makes it so they're able to get a quick heal off on their entire team, which is pretty big at that point, especially when you have a Caitlyn that you see, because unless the Caitlyn is ulting Soraka, which Soraka can ult to prevent the Caitlyn ult from killing, but the Caitlyn can, the Soraka can be the ultimate kite block and just heal whoever the ulti is hitting. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and go out into the third picks for Renegades, which is Malphite and Orianna. Malphite is a champion that I feel like is really good in this meta, and they give it to RF Legendary on his return game back. Flares has been subbing for him for the past couple weeks. I'm actually really happy about this because them picking up Malphite into a Rumble is really rough, because this means that, and also the Soraka, because that means if they're actually able to get into the backline and burst and kill, especially the Soraka, the Lutz, who is super immobile, the Rumble, who is immobile as well and needs to get off his ulti to do a lot of crazy things, are pretty big. Like, the Lucian himself is a little bit harder to hit because it's, zero lag. It's easy to flash a Malphite ult when there's zero lag. But, I mean, 3 out of 4 champions that have already been shown up, Malphite does really well at being able to jump onto and really put the hurt on. Then they pick up Orianna, which I think that's been Alex's go-to champion, honestly. It's not really contested. He performs on it. He gets off some pretty good ultis. So I guess that's probably why they ended up going to Orianna matchup. I mean, it's not bad, especially since you can rush in Athenes right now. Currently looking at the team with 2 APs. It's definitely something where he's just like, he has the itemization paths that he can take to fully make him enabled against the Immortals team lineup right now. And then the final one is Echo for Huni. Huni has provided results on this champion multiple times over. This is a dangerous champion in Huni's hands. I don't think it's like one of those champions where people constantly practice it or play it. But Huni knows how to play this champion really well. He knows the ins and outs of this champion. And I feel like this is just one of those picks that are in the very deep champion pool that Huni has that he's able to pull out. So looking at the comps, you have a really nice tanky front line in Malphite, Gragas, Braum, while Caitlyn and Orianna are able to put out constant damage. Versus the super AP heavy comp of Immortals. However, they do have a good team fight. They do have good skirmishes. Just because of the fact of Echo being able to split very effectively and being able to keep himself safe very easily with his ulti, his W, his E. He has a lot of tools to be able to escape. Skirmishes are not a problem. Team fight wise, I would definitely say Renegades have the favor, just because of the front line that they have. As long as they're able to control the fight, if Renegades are the ones starting and engaging the fights, Immortals actually should have a really hard time. But if Immortals are the ones that are being able to start these fights and not clump up together for all this CC that could come their way and be able to successfully work around the tank line, I feel like Immortals will be able to pull this out. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into what I feel like is the first big important moment, which is going to be at 1916 right here. So with this one being right here, as you can see, if you look at the mini-map, there is, oh jeez, it's hard to like make this work right now, but Renegades are actually roaming through the river right through here, and that's actually really rough because at this point in time, Immortals, Huni's already teleported in. So they need to try and make some form of commitment happen. They need to try and kill off Freeze immediately because the Orianna is coming. Gragas is right in front. And the Malphite is going to be able to be there as well as he teleports behind him. And this is like a really bad situation. Malphite doesn't have ulti at this moment in time. I do not believe he does. He might. I do believe he will have ulti during this fight. Freeze is in position to actually put his ult onto Wild Turtle, which means there's going to be a good amount of damage. Huni hasn't really been able to do anything. Hakuo is just, back here. He's doing Braum thing. Echo ulti is nowhere near anybody at the moment, so it's not going to really pop anybody. And even then, he doesn't really want to just raw ulti like that unless he's going to be able to pick up a kill. So let's watch this play out right now. So as you can see, Adrian's trying his best. He's silencing, he's healing, he's ulted. And honestly, Hooney's just going to get knocked all over the place. The stun is going to come out. There's going to be an ulti from Pole Belter. And then, boom, there's the ulti from RF. RF actually has a really good ulti right there because he hits both Rainover and Adrian. Now, if they were able to put out more damage here, they would probably be able to pick up the kill. Unfortunately, cooldowns are a thing. And Soraka is going to be able to not take enough damage to where she's not able to heal Rainover anymore. And they're able to just successfully disengage from that. Big things there was just the fact that Immortals really overstayed their welcome right there. Hooney teleported in. And honestly, that was just really poor planning on their part because the rest of Immortals lineup was not there to assist. So they just fought a 5v3, 5v2, 5v3. Like, it was never a 5v5 fight. Malphite got a decent ulti off onto the Soraka and Rumble. Unfortunately for Renegades, it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough damage to back up that ulti, so they were able to just get away scot-free, and there's no real CC at that point because Orianna ult was down, Gragas was down, well, Gragas ult was down, Malphite was down. Like, all their CC was gone, so at that point in time, there's nothing else they could do. But that was just a big overstay on Immortal's part, and it looked like more miscommunication from Immortal's part. So now we see that Immortal have been scratched. They have bled a little bit, and Renegades are going to try and take advantage of this. So we're going to go to our next play. It's at 21 minutes and 35 seconds. So as we're seeing this, you see Gragas is moving up right here, and they're actually going to be under tower right here. They are going to push. Alex Itch has shown movement towards them, but the weird thing is that they know Crumbs is here. They absolutely know he's here. So it's very obvious a dive is about to happen. So the best thing to do is to actually just leave the tower. I mean, that's the safest play, but they decide that the Culling will clear the wave and they don't have to worry about them diving. The Braum passive does go onto Wild Turtle, and he is going to get stunned up by it. However, Adrian does a great job at healing right here. And then something super unfortunate happens where he actually heals Wild Turtle. I don't know if that mattered, but yeah, that was just really unfortunate. And now Pole Belter makes a big mistake while Orianna is able to just follow him. He actually overstays. He tries too hard to pick up those kills. So unfortunately, he's actually going to pay with that with his life. And now Renegades have shown that they not only have created a scratch, and it is not just a flesh wound, they actually have done a considerable amount of damage to Immortals. However, if you look at the gold lead, Immortals are actually still ahead 2k gold. So they're going to get this tower, and they're going to still stay ahead 1k. This kind of speaks for Immortals, how they trade objectives and their micro game, to be honest with you. Not only that, Echo is out farming, Rumble's out farming, Pole Belter is out farming. The only person on the Immortals lineup at this moment in time that's not out farming is Wild Turtle, and he's only down by like 6. So that's not too bad. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and go over to our next moment here, which is at 24 minutes and 5 seconds. I believe. Yeah, that 24 or 6. That's fine. So here we see they're kind of skirmishing right outside of Rainover's jungle, and they're establishing vision. They're trying to control this area. So Rainover has actually an idea that they are inside of his jungle. They see them. They see him right there. And while this is all happening, Rainover just overextends really badly right there. 2 teleports are going to come in, and Rainover is going to try and get healed. That was a solo ulti, I believe. I don't think that hit Hooney. It might have. But regardless, that was just a really bad overstep. They knew that Renegades was there. They saw the support. And in a team game like this, and the fact they just saw Crumbs in them right there, I think it's best to assume that the rest of the team was there. However, I mean, it's the kind of thing that can happen to anybody. So, oh well, it happens to the best of us. Right now, Renegades though are playing really well. They're capitalizing on every single bit of the leads that they are getting at the moment with these kills. However, if you look at the gold, they are still down in gold. And this is going to be a thing that you guys are going to notice throughout this. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm really confused, and we'll actually see if the ulti didn't even hit Huni, but the Braum passive was on him, so he just got locked up and CC'd. And unfortunately, the Lutz laser was not enough to kill. But it was just one of those things where you look at how Renegades played that and how Immortals played that, and it was just sloppy on Rainover, in my opinion, to be caught out like that after seeing the Braum there. But they are still ahead in gold. It's like I said, this kind of speaks to the kind of team that Immortals is. They're 7-1 right now, but they're still ahead, technically. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go to where the next big play is, which is going to be at 33 minutes and 20 seconds, I believe. Alright, get straight to it. Okay, that's fine. So, right here, you can see that on the bot side, Caitlyn is pushing right here, and Wild Turtle is clearing out wards. The Immortals lineup are actually positioning themselves for a Baron play, and Echo is actually going to go ahead and TP away. Now, this is absolutely fine because they have Braum, Caitlyn, bot. Braum, Caitlyn, bot cannot teleport and react to this, so this is actually a perfect Baron play to get Immortals right back into this game. And for some reason, Crumbs decides that he can take this. Pobelter is right there. So there's no way that Crumbs is going to be able to make it out of this with his life. However, big thing on the side right there, Soraka and Wild Turtle are actually having a hard time because of Orianna Malphite. Immortals are able to pick up a couple kills here, and they're actually able to pick up RF on the Malphite, which is pretty big. And they also have Baron buff on 3 members of their team. Now, they did trade 2 towers for that, but the big thing to talk about when you talk about Baron outplays is the fact of how cleanly were they able to execute it. Were they behind? How were they able to make the play? What did they have to sacrifice to achieve the Baron? They literally sacrificed only 2 turrets, but when you look at the Renegades composition, I think that's actually a really good trade because they're kind of trade that team that's going to want to group and fight behind a backline, which even with 2 turrets down, that doesn't really threaten your base too much unless they target that bot side area and try to go for that inhib turret. But yeah, Crumb's really out of position right there, and as you guys can see, this is where they jump onto him. Now, the Malphite only hit Adrian, which I did think was very interesting, and Wild Turtle did a good job at knowing that he was going to die there, so he actually decided to go full aggressive and just kill off Alex Itch, forcing them to lose their wave clear immediately. Alright, so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go on to 35 minutes and 20 seconds, which is actually coming up, so I don't even have to move it. Wow, this is convenient. Good planning. As you can see, they're grouping right here. This is what I was talking about, where they're just trying to group behind their tank line. Lutz is here first to try and do some form of wave clear. Braum is going to put a shield up. They're actually going to try and jump onto Adrian immediately. Adrian actually throws his Q at his feet to heal himself, which is really well played on his part. And he's able to continuously kite back, ulti, all this other good stuff. And that was an example of getting too greedy for the Soraka. Like, they really wanted their potassium. And honestly, the potassium, they're allergic to bananas, and they just didn't know it. So when he has the ult there to avoid himself from getting killed by Freeze, they're going to continue the chase here, though, as Pobelter is going to be able to pick up a kill here. But the AoE damage from Renegades is not something to be trifled with. The exhaust goes out onto RF. And honestly, this is just huge for Immortals because now they've just completely opened it up. The Baron buff is going to allow them to be able to make quite a big play off of this. And honestly, that was just an example of Renegades just going too deep for something. Like, yes, it's good to kill Soraka, but the Soraka, Adrian was able to throw his Q at his feet and heal himself. He was able to ulti. There was just not enough to be able to kill the Soraka. Like, they prepped to kill the Soraka really hard there, but the Soraka got to live, and Hakuo is legitimately left by himself with the Soraka just throwing out stuff. And I feel like that was pretty big on that part, but it's the fact that Soraka just got to live that. Like, they did use so many resources for nothing there. Frey never puts an ult sideways to just get the slow off, not so much worrying about the damage. And that allows the rest of the team to really just catch up. The flash QE is going to kill off Freeze. And then the Orianna ulti is going to hurt. It's going to kill off Pole Belter. But it's not going to be enough, as Wild Turtle is just kiting back to save Adrian's life by, you know, giving the ultimate CC, which is death to the Malphite. So we actually are closing in on our last play here, which is at 40 minutes and 20 seconds. So Immortals are pushing up at the top side right here, and they're looking to actually end the game at this moment in time. TPs are going to come out. There's going to be 2 TPs that are going to come out. RF Legendary is going to come out first. He's trying to make something happen. He's silenced. He's stunned. He's CC'd. He gets his ult off only on Pale Belter without being able to provide damage. And they just CC'd the initiator right there. They got way too fast. They went way too forward. And honestly, they just got blown back by that. And we don't really need to see the rest right here. But that's the reason why I want to talk about this match is Renegades have looked super shaky this whole entire season. And they actually had a really good early game against the #1 team in NA LCS. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because I've looked at Renegades as a mid-tier team when the season started. Now they are at the very bottom. They've been cursed with the nickname Relegades. And honestly, they're in a really bad spot. And I don't know exactly where they're going to go from here. But this is honestly the team that I was thinking was going to show up with a really good early game when it came down to getting kills and rotating at the perfect times for kills. However, their objective control was a little bit more on the lackluster side. Crumbs just did not perform well again this game. I feel like RF actually, for his first game back, he definitely performed. Alex Itch performed, Freeze performed, Hakuho was okay. I mean, he really couldn't do too much in that match, it seemed like. But the objective control just wasn't there for Renegades, and I feel like that was the big deciding factor, is Immortals was just that much better at being able to control objectives. And yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're the top tier team. Immortals played super sloppy this game. I don't think it was all Renegades playing well. I also think Immortals played really poorly in the early to mid. I think all the way up until that Baron play was really Immortals outplaying themselves for the most part, because Renegades played really well in terms of collapsing at the right times. And not only that, Immortals made mistakes to allow those to happen. Like, those dives not dives, but those collapses were something I felt like were avoidable if they were to just back or not had the miscommunication that it seemed like they had. That could be something that could be exploited later on. And I don't know if it might have been they didn't prep for Renegades as much as they had to. Well, they should have. Because I believe they went against Team Liquid the next day, so they might have prepped for Team Liquid a little bit more. But it's just one of those things where Immortals they played okay. I won't say that they played to the same that Immortals that I've been talking about with all my friends as the best team in NA LCS currently. I feel like this was more of a Immortals that we would see if the standings for first place were a lot closer. Like if Immortals actually had a couple losses, if they were in the same situation as like C9, TSM, and CLG. But yeah, mistakes all around. Unfortunately, Renegade still has to work on their mid translating early game into mid and late, and I feel like they'll do a lot better. They'll be able to perform a lot better. And Immortals, honestly, they just keep playing like they do. Hopefully miscommunication like that doesn't happen. I hope they don't get relaxed around players or around teams that are a little lower in the standings. just because mistakes like this, honestly, if Renegades would have translated it a little bit better and just controlled the Baron area a bit more, I think Renegades probably could have came out on top. Even though Immortals did keep the gold lead, just a little bit more objective control from Renegades, and honestly, just a slightly better micro game could have made this game a lot harder for Immortals. Even though they, like I said, they kept the gold lead. So that still speaks to the fact that they're still playing like Immortals when it comes down to their micro game. But without further ado, guys, thank you guys for watching. This has been a new kind of content. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe to join YouTube's greatest travesty. And thank you guys yet again for watching. Peace. I am out.